Do we have enough? We have people coming in? I'm waiting for some people to come in so that we could get started. How does it look?
People coming in. Oh, they've been waiting.
Yeah?
Yeah. You're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to our live interview. My name is Carlos Jiménez Flores. I am a member of the Puerto Rican Agenda. And with me tonight, I have Mia Irizarry. Say hi to the people.
Hi.
She's a little shy, but we're going to have to be a little bit louder.
Okay.
So, for those of you who don't know, Mia has a video that in the last 24 hours has gone viral because we're in Chicago, and 3 weeks ago, on June 14th, it was her birthday, and she had gone to celebrate with her family at a forest preserve called Caldwell, right? Caldwell Woods?
Forest Preserve.
Okay, Caldwell Forest Preserve, which is in Chicago, far northwest side. And that day, she had a permit for the pavilion. I guess they rent out pavilions. Yeah. And when she was approached and assaulted by, let's just say, an individual, because of the fact that she was wearing a shirt with a Puerto Rican flag, and he took offense to it, she decided to start recording it, and she went on Facebook Live, and that video has been picked up by social media, and it's just become this beast that within the last 24 hours has already been shared about 35, 40 million times. We're here tonight because Mia, her goal is to drive the narrative, not have other people dictate what the discourse is going to be when it comes to what she experienced. And right now, we're just creating that platform. The media is welcome to share this video if they like, take snippets from it. However, we don't want any editing done that makes it look a different kind of way other than what the message that she wants to deliver. So what I would like to do before we get into a deeper conversation, just tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell everybody, who you are, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, as so many of you already know, my name is Mia. I'm 24, and I'm a professional. I graduated college. I became certified in my job, so I am educated to Mr. Man, whatever. I, enjoy living life, carefree spirit. I don't know what else to say. You're putting me on the spot.
No, it's okay. I think the important thing to note is that there are stereotypes in play. And here you are, a young Latina, strong, calm, your energy, your vibe is just calming. And as I was going through, I've seen the video numerous times, and I like to read the commentary from the people. And a lot of the comments that were being made by a lot of people was the fact that you just remain so calm the entire time, and people have been complimenting you about that. And you always have the people that say, man, if I was there, I would do X, Y, Z. Yeah. Like they're Bruce Lee or something, and they're just going to beat up the guy. And tell us why. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Yeah. But I want to know from you, share with us why you chose to handle the situation the way that you did, and you remained calm for an entire 36 minutes of the video time, because this is way longer than the 36 minutes we saw in your video. So you remained calm for so long, and why did you make that choice?
So I think I can relate with the general public when we see a video of harassment, of racism, of something just so violent that's has no real reason behind it. I feel like a lot of us feel we would react in a certain way, in an aggressive way, in a, oh, if I was there, this is how I would handle it type of a way. And I have been that person to say, oh, I wish I would have been there because, I would have stood up for that person, or I would have said something. And being put in the situation, and the real factor was when I pled for help from the officer and he ignored me the first time, I knew at that moment that, I was really being treated like the minority in that situation. And if I had acted out in an aggressive way, in a defensive way, just to protect myself from being put in harm's way, I probably would have been criminalized by the officer because I'm the one that actually put my hands on someone, So it's just something I knew I had to do when the situation presented itself. It's something that if I would have handled it any other way, I don't think the outcome would have been as amazing and positive as it has been so far. So,
Did you feel when the officer ignored your plea for help? Mm-hmm. How did that make you feel?
A lot. It made me feel a lot, to say the least. But one of the main feelings was honestly fear. I was genuinely fearful for what could have happened to me. The man was so persistent in coming to me and being aggressive towards me, and I pled multiple times, as the video shows, and it was just no reaction, no response from him. He even walked away from me at one point, so that I just felt so concerned for my well-being. I really thought that I was going to end up being physically hit.
Watching the video, for me, there was like this sense of helplessness. And I'm like, and nobody's talking about it, and it just popped into my head. But your cousin Nathan, who's like a brother to you, mm-hmm. to me, it's like the restraint that he must have had to just sit on his urges and not, because Nathan is not a little kid. Nathan is a big boy who's very strong and could have easily manhandled the guy. And there's a lot of criticism on social media, the Monday morning quarterbacks who are going to say, "Juan, if I was there, why didn't that guy just jump in? Her brother didn't jump in sooner," and stuff. You can see in the video that when Tim, who is the aggressor, approached you and got really he was like on you. Like
I wouldn't even say an inch away from me.
Yeah, so he's on you, and Nathan comes in. As soon as Nathan comes in, the cop didn't even hesitate to tell Nathan to step back. Mm-hmm. And it's the only time that the officer got involved at all. And it's just sad that it took that. So I can't even fathom being your cousin, your brother, at that moment, witnessing all of this happening, knowing that because he's a male, now if he steps up and protects you, the cop is going to put him on the floor.
And in a weird way, I've been very thankful that it's been him, because he also has a very calm and more reserved personality, and I know that he would have acted appropriately like the way he did. And, other people in my family or other friends who I have as my support system, I know that someone could have potentially, done what everyone says that they would do, be the aggressor and protect me. But I know that would have put them in a situation that would have been so negative. Uh-huh. And I'm thankful, as odd as it sounds, that it was me in that situation, because, again, I know people who would have been aggressive and would have ended up handcuffed or would have ended up attacked because they decided to protect themselves in a more offensive way. Mm-hmm. So, it's been a blessing in disguise, I guess you could say.
Now, was this the first time that you ever purchased a permit to be in a forest preserve?
Yes, this is the first.
So this is your first experience, and here's how it turned out. Okay, so to me, so you had the permit, you show up with Nathan, and then what? Take us to, before you started to record, can you just walk us through that moment before?
So before I had started recording, me and Nathan arrived, and there was a group of 3 people, 2 men and a woman, sitting in the area already. And I had gone up to them and I told them, oh, I have a permit for the area. Do you guys mind moving? And the other male and the female, they were very polite and they were, okay, we'll leave. The female did ask me, oh, you have a permit? Which, understandable. I would ask the same thing.
Right.
And, I responded, yes, I did. And they started packing up. There was a woman off to the side who I guess had called the cops previously. So I think one of the big things is I never called the cops.
Okay.
I never actively, dialed 911 and said this man's harassing me or these people aren't moving. The cops were already on the way because a woman had called because one of the men in the group had assaulted her and had choked her, supposedly. I didn't follow up with it, so I don't know what that outcome was, but that's why the police were initially called. So backtracking, I asked them to move, the 2 move, and Tim saw the shirt I was wearing, and he asked me, oh, is that the Texas shirt? And I was like, no, it's the Puerto Rican shirt. And he asked me again, oh, is that the Texas shirt? And I said, no. And he responded, oh, well, why are you wearing that? And the first time he asked me, why are you wearing that, it actually wasn't aggressive. It was very in a questioning tone. And my thought process was, oh, it's the Puerto Rican Pride weekend, I gotta represent for my people. So I was about to talk to him and tell him, oh, this is why I'm wearing the shirt. But before I could, something changed. And I don't know what it was. Maybe he had a delayed reaction, but he instantly became more aggressive in his tone and continuing to ask me, why are you wearing that? We're in America. Some of the same things that he was saying in the video. At first, I wasn't going to record because I figured he would just move along. But right before I grabbed my phone, he actually stood on top of one of the benches of the table. He actually got on top of it and was pointing at me like, why are you wearing that? That's when the fear kind of kicked in.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
That's when I decided, you know what, something's about to happen. I really need to make sure that I have this recorded or I have it somewhere so that way I can defend myself in case something were to happen. So that was the background. And by the time that I started recording, the officer was already there. So how much of it he saw, whether he just got out of his car, I don't know how much of the beginning he actually saw, but I know that he was already there.
Okay. It's interesting that because that adds another layer to the story. Because not Tim, but the other gentleman, the one that had the black T-shirt on, if the cops were already called before you got there, because the guy with the black T-shirt allegedly assaulted a lady in another pavilion, and she calls the cops, and she came over to yours, right? The lady was in the area?
She was in the area,
in the vicinity?
She was in the area.
So here's the lady in the vicinity, because she calls the cops on one of the 3 perpetrators, and so even with that, the cop had no urgency about him. The call that comes in through 911 is that a man chokes a lady, right? Assaults a lady, and there's no urgency about, there's an aggressive person who's obviously drinking because they had their beer there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious, right? So it's just interesting that I just don't know the thought process. I'm not a cop. I've never been a cop. But if I'm on a car and it's because a man is assaulting a woman, and I show up and I see the 2 guys who are drinking, and then he just didn't do anything at all, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, for the people who haven't seen the video, they could just watch the video. We don't have to recap what went on the video. People could just watch that. So let's talk about, so he was arrested. Let's talk about after the arrest. What transpired after you finished shooting the video? What happened?
I don't think that he was even in handcuffs when I ended the video. I'm not sure. But afterwards, he continued to sit on that bench, which was part of the area that I was renting out, so that really just stopped me from being able to use the space the way I wanted to use it. They were there from, I think we looked at the times, and it was like 1:45 to 3:45 was how long the whole ordeal lasted. I started the live like around 1:45, and I put my final statement in at 3:45. So that's how long it took before they decided to finally arrest this man. And even then, they still didn't leave the premises right away. There was a solid, I want to say, about 30 minutes of Tim in the backseat of a squad car in front of the shelter that I had rented out in the forest preserve. So it felt so drawn out, and it felt like I was being punished. Like, oh, you're causing us to whatever it is, so we're gonna invade your space, you know? So it was just such a long, drawn-out process, and I don't know what the process requires, but it just felt long.
It sounds long. Now, they finally leave, and you obviously barely got to celebrate your birthday. And, I mean, after all of that, who feels like in a festive mood anyway? Yeah. Now, interestingly, okay, I've been watching the media today, and a lot of people are stepping up and apologizing. There's like a whole list of people from the very top. The chief of police for the Forest Preserves District of Cook County, which is the law enforcement agency that manages all the forest preserves in Chicago. Well, in the whole county, in Cook County. And so, from the top, the chief of police, also the commissioner was in a press conference today with, who was it? It was also Tony Preckwinkle, the Cook County board president. She also made a statement and apologized to you for what you went through. How do you feel about their apologies? What does it mean that the people, the higher-ups, have been apologizing today for what happened 3 weeks ago?
You know, before it went viral, I don't really anticipate how they could have really known about it. And before it did, when I originally posted it, I did receive an apology from the Forest Preserve initially. So, I mean, for that, I'm thankful that it was recognized as wrong and that they are putting their statements out there. And I really do appreciate that. So I really can't feel upset for it being 3 weeks later, because, again, I didn't even expect the video to become as big as it has, and it's still very mind-blowing, so, yeah.
Now, the governor of Puerto Rico, Rosselló, he tweeted yesterday, several tweets, and in those tweets, he basically mentions that something needs to be done about the officer, and he would like the officer to be terminated. Do you have any thoughts about that? How does it feel that the governor of Puerto Rico even knows who you are now?
That's wild. That's so wild. I mean, I would never say that I want someone's livelihood to be taken away from them. That's out of my character. Even though he did me wrong, I would never say, like, I want him to be punished in a certain way. I mean, he definitely needs to be reprimanded, because my life was put at risk because of whatever issues he had, whether it was inappropriate training, whether it was something else that he was going through. It put me at risk, and that's not fair, because whether it's me or someone else, it doesn't matter who it is. We should be able to depend on a police officer to help control a situation and to help step in and to really protect and serve like they say they are. And it's just, unfortunately, it has made me feel a little more cautious towards police officers. I know that there are so many good cops out there. I'm very well aware of that. But you really never know until you encounter one. And it's hard because I never had that feeling before. I've never had encounters with the police before, but it's never been negative for me personally. So it's definitely making me more cautious.
Okay. What's the message? What do you want America? We understand, we see what's going on. Let's just not sugarcoat it. Mm-hmm. We see what's going on and what's happening, and we know the climate of our country. We know that. As Puerto Ricans, we also know that we're here. We belong in this country. We're not, we have been American citizens officially since 1917 when the Jones Act was passed, and it was retro. So it goes to 1898 when the United States invaded Puerto Rico and took over. And so we've been United States citizens since 1898. Puerto Ricans have fought in every single war since then, starting from World War I. So we have bled for this country. We have fought for this country to have all the freedoms and benefits that even guys like Tim enjoy. Mm-hmm. Yet, there are so many Americans that don't know where Puerto Rico's at, that don't know that Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Mm-hmm. What is the lesson? What do you think is the opportunity that you have right now using this platform? What is your message to those people?
Just really educate yourself before you speak on things in such a hateful and negative way. This could have easily been avoided had he just known that, yes, Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. Such an easy thing to avoid. Granted, whether it's racism or not, it's educating yourself is just so important to these battles. It's so important to make sure that you sound educated and collected and making sure everything is appropriately discussed. And it's just all super mind-blowing to me that it's 2018 and there's still people who really don't know their U.S. history. Mm-hmm. All these super patriotic people, America, and they don't know that Puerto Rico is part of what they claim as their home country. And just really, for the people that might be blind to racism, it's still very much alive and it's still very much present. Things didn't change when laws got passed. Segregation didn't, and the end of segregation didn't mean the end of racism. Terrible, just a simple altercation, but there are severe ones. And just really bringing it to the light, this is happening now, and you can't keep ignoring it, and we need to do better.
It's interesting that, just so that the people out there know, I grew up with your mom and your uncle, her brother, and, well, obviously with the other brother too. He's just not here. He's just not here right now. But I grew up with them late 70s through the 80s, when my family first came from Puerto Rico and I was 8 years old. And we didn't live in Humboldt Park, which is where most of the Puerto Ricans were concentrated at the time and kind of dispersed out after that. The Puerto Rican community is in Humboldt Park, but we grew up in Ukrainian Village, which was full of Ukrainians. And we dealt with so much racism with the white gangs and stuff like that. And it breaks my heart. Watching that video, to me, breaks my heart, because that's when I'm watching, I'm like, man, you're the next generation. And you're going through in the same city, same hometown, and you're going through what we went through as kids, And to know that 40 years later, it's still happening, seriously, it's just, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it just, I just hope that the generation after you doesn't have to go through what we went through, now what you have experienced, and beyond. At one time, it's interesting that all of this happened because you're wearing a T-shirt that has a Puerto Rican flag. So I don't know if you know that there was a law in Puerto Rico called the gag law, imposed by the U.S., that this was 1948. And that law basically meant that if a Puerto Rican could not own or display a Puerto Rican flag. So in our own island, we couldn't even have our flag. And so that lasted for almost 10 years. And here we are. That was 1948. Here we are 2018. And because of our flag, we still, find ourselves in situations that put us in danger. Yeah. I think that maybe we could wrap this up. So what I want to get from you before we sign off is, do you have any final words for the people who are out there, who are listening, or who are going to be watching this, in the future? Yeah. What would you like to say to them?
Thank you all. Seriously, the amount of support has been so overwhelming. It's been constant people just, saying thank you for representing us well, and we're proud of you, and you handled yourself amazing, and just hearing it from strangers is incredible. So I sincerely thank everyone who's been positive towards me in this situation. To the people who haven't, educate yourself. But no, seriously, I just appreciate anyone who's come out to apologize on behalf of the situation, and everyone who's been so positive to me because of this situation. And I just hope it's a learning experience for everybody, and everybody learns and educates themselves.
Thank you. And thank you. And that's it for tonight.